Well, let's just start there. Great leadership brings prowess to analytics. Vid, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'll actually pop an article in the chat box. We've brought this out once before. It's from it's from MIT, Sloan Review, and I think it probably summarizes well, I think, what we're trying to say here, Reg, and that's in the chat box for folks to kind of access and look at. But to me, and I've heard this in my entire career, as I've done analytics and I've led analytic, activities and high performance teams. One of the things that, when we go to the qualitative, quantitative analysis, understanding the consumer behavior and how it impacts, business outcomes, et cetera, one of the fundamental mentoring that I've gotten in my couple of decades, 2.5 decades of doing this is that you always start with the right questions. You always, it doesn't matter. Small data, big data, no data, some data, all data, it doesn't matter. You start with the right questions, right? And to me, the right questions don't just birth themselves. The right questions start with a very, very good, honest reading and acumen that leaders have about their businesses. It comes from a place of complete vulnerability. It also comes from a complete place of knowing what your business model is, how you run your business, who is important to your business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, when we say leadership brings prowess to analytics, I think that's fundamentally, once again, the first principle or the one truth, if you may, in terms of driving this. And oftentimes what I see out there these days, especially, and it's not just about leadership analytics, I think it's in general analytics, that we tend to put the cart before the horse, or we tend to have the tail wag the dog. And I've used these terms so many times before, that we tend to put the data before we put the questions. And I think when we say leadership brings prowess to analytics, we are fundamentally saying that it's the questions that should be leading the data and not the other way around. So that's what it means to me personally.
Yeah. I've got a copy of the article here. It's a really good one. And the title, again, Leading with Decision-Driven Data Analytics. And for someone like me who doesn't have a background in analysis or data analytics, I sometimes have to read these things twice. And there was a line in the article that was especially meaningful to me, and I'm just going to read it out loud. And it says, the solution is simple. Instead of finding purpose for data, find data for a purpose.
Correct.
And we call this approach decision-driven data analytics. And when I read that, it was kind of like ding, 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 ding. An easy way to say that is great leadership brings prowess to analytics. You can have all of the data organized in all these great kinds of ways, but if it isn't there for a purpose, if it isn't there to inform what you're trying to get done from a leadership perspective, you're going to be spinning, and it's going to be big data. It's not going to be small informative data. And one of the things on the road, but we travel with props, right? But
I noticed.
One of the things I want to bring up is, what does this mean then that, your great leadership brings prowess to analytics? And it's that connects to what you said, what leadership analytics are. It's always asking the right questions. And so I'm going to kind of put this up for a minute, and it might be easier to read my words kind of like this. But this is just a very simple leadership process, and it's one that we recommend at Rejuvi. It starts with strategic intent, and it finishes with implement. And this process, these I'm going to start with these two. You'll notice that this top one and this bottom one are kind of a different color. And because most organizations from a business development perspective, from a business practice perspective, they're really focused on these two boxes, which is kind of the long term. Where are we going and why are we going there? Yep. And then the short term, how far and fast can we move in the next business?
And how are we performing on set goals? Yep.
Right. It's kind of from here to here. Yep. And we've talked about that before when we've talked about the more progressive business development model of Rejuvi, is that we do understand most organizations are there. However, if you want to move to a model that gives you 4.1 to 4.2x results, you also have to add in these two pieces right here. So you're not just moving from your long-term strategic intent, where are we going and why are we going there? You're moving in this whole new piece right here called business unit intelligence, and really having all leaders, all people of the organization to be involved in discussion about what they see on the streets every day, what's really happening inside of the market. And that starts to inform this piece right here, which is what we call target, or targeting the right work. How many times have we heard organizations and folks within it are struggling with how they define the right work of the organization? Yep. Well, these are the one of the two pieces that are left out of this model of what great leadership looks like. So when I read this article called "Leading with Decision-Driven Data Analytics," and it talks about, I'm going to get this out again. It talks about, instead of finding a purpose for data, instead of finding a purpose for data, find data for a purpose. I'm like, a more simple way to say that is to say, great leadership can bring prowess to analytics. Yep. But you have to start taking a look at, first and foremost, what is your great leadership process? Because if you are trying to just jump from this to this, and not adding these pieces into your know-how portfolio for your leaders, you're going to continue to spin with analytics. This is a great process. This is what great leadership looks like. You've got to overlay that on the data, right?
Yep, absolutely. And I think just, building off of that too is like, if you didn't go through that process, then you don't know what are the right questions to ask, right? And as we were talking about, before, it's that whole how do you tie, leadership behaviors, excellence to business practices, and then what business practices then tie to what outcomes. And frankly, if you didn't have all that upfront work done, then how do you know where to go, which behaviors to push, which practices to push? Do you know what I mean? It's almost like starting with the end in mind.
Yeah, and I think just I think another way for me to say it is that I think that great leadership, it brings the directioning and decisioning prowess needed to make the most of analytics.
That's right. Yep.
Right.
That's right.
It brings the voice. That's our point of view.